Bicentennial season of '76 began, appropriately enough, in colonial New England, where the Cinderella team of '75, the Baltimore Colts, were prepared to prove to everyone that their so-called miracle on 33rd Street was not a fluke, and that the Colts were indeed legitimate contenders for a Super Bowl championship. The much-publicized Baltimore Sack Pack, which had led the league in quarterback traps in '75, was primed for another super season in '76. And their first target was New England's newly installed Mr. Everything, Steve Grogan. The Colts kept the Patriots out of the end zone until late in the game, and owner-president Robert Irsay appreciated the team's united effort. But the revamped Patriots put on some pressure of their own and actually led 6-3 with only 3 minutes left in the first half. Then quarterback Burt Jones hit Glenn Dowdy for 2 touchdowns in 41 seconds to break the game open. And the Colts emerged from the pressure cooker with a hard-fought 27-13 victory. In the second week, the home opener brought Baltimore fans their first close-up look at a receiver named Roger Carr, who had caught 44 passes during his 2 previous seasons, but who had scored only twice. But then, in one glittering afternoon against the Cincinnati Bengals, Carr caught 6 more passes, good for 198 yards and 3 touchdowns. Burt Jones passed for more than 300 yards, but the man of the hour was the new star who was born that beautiful September afternoon in Baltimore, Roger Carr, number 81. Baltimore outscored Cincinnati 28-27. And as Roger Carr put it, when plays work like that, I just get tingly all over. The following week in Dallas, Burt Jones and the Colts tingled in pain as a national TV audience witnessed Roger Staubach's best day as a pro. Dallas coach Tom Landry called it a near-perfect day. But it was almost not enough, as Tony Linhart kicked for a tie with 28 seconds left. But then, with just 3 seconds left, a Fran Herrera untied it for the Cowboys, and the hottest team in pro football had beaten the Colts in what some saw as a possible preview of the Super Bowl. Burt Jones and the Colts came back home and got well immediately against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as they scored on their first 7 possessions of the game. Roger Carr continued to leave defenders in the dirt as the Colts rolled up more than 450 total yards, about 1/3 of that on the legs of number 26, Lydell Mitchell, and Baltimore romped to an easy 42-17 win. Next, Don Shula's Miami Dolphins paid their respects to the league's best offense, and another national TV audience watched Burt Jones complete 10 straight passes and 11 of 14 overall as he led the Colts on 4 successive scoring drives. In the second half, with a 28-14 lead, the Colts turned loose the pass rush against Earl Morrall and the Dolphins and preserved their 3rd consecutive victory over Miami. As Burt Jones said later, we played it pretty close to the vest, but then we owned the vest. The next week in Buffalo, the league's hottest passer continued to burn the opposition. The Colts again rolled up more than 400 yards and knocked off their former nemesis, the Buffalo Bills, 31-13. With 3 consecutive victories, the Colts headed into New York, where the Burt and Roger show this time accounted for more than 200 yards, including 2 more long touchdowns. As for Burt Jones, Joe Namath said, "If you asked me to pick the number 1 quarterback in the league, I'd pick Burt Jones. Who else?" At mid-season, the Colts were alone in first with a 6-1 record and ready for a Monday night encounter with Dan Pastorini and the Houston Oilers. The sack pack reached the quarterback 6 times, while on offense, Lydell Mitchell showed the nation why he was the leading rusher in the conference. Lydell Mitchell set them up, and number 48, Roosevelt Leaks, twice cashed them in. The Colts made it look easy, especially when long-legged rookie running back Ron Lee, number 34, took one all the way. The Colts impressed everyone as they easily downed the Oilers 38-14. The season's 9th week found the Colts in San Diego, where Burt Jones hit 18 of 25, including 3 more touchdowns, 2 of them to Roger Carr. The Baltimore offense piled up almost 500 yards, more than 200 of which were attributed to the silky smooth running and receiving of Lydell Mitchell. Backup quarterback Bill Troop mopped up with a touchdown run of his own. And after 9 games, the Colts were 8-1 with a comfortable 2-game lead in the AFC East. In Week 10, the Patriots came to Baltimore for their rematch with the Colts, which was billed as a duel between the Jones-Carr connection and New England's 3-4 defense, featuring the best young cornerback in the league, Mike Haynes, number 40. Roger Carr caught 3 passes for 86 yards, and his 9th touchdown of the season gave the Colts the early lead. But then things started to turn in New England's favor. A second Carr touchdown was correctly ruled out of bounds. And then the Patriots decided it was time to put some pressure on the game's best passing combination. The result was that cornerback Mike Haynes came out looking as though he should be voted Rookie of the Year, which of course he eventually was. Twice, potential touchdowns to Roger Carr became interceptions by Mike Haynes, and suddenly Baltimore's irresistible force did not look quite so irresistible. The Patriots won 21-14, and the Colts' 6-game win streak had finally ended. It was now time to play what Coach Ted Marchibroda calls Colt football. We win on offense, on defense, on special teams, with whatever it takes to win. And the following Monday night, the special teams made the difference in Miami. The NFL's top-ranked passing combination reasserted itself in the rematch with the Jets, as Burt Jones threw 3 second-quarter touchdown passes, including Roger Carr's 10th of the season. In St. Louis for the season's next to last week, the league's two top offensive teams put on a show for a national audience. For the Cardinals, it was win or be eliminated, while for the Colts, a playoff berth was already assured. But that didn't dampen the desire of men like tight end Raymond Chester. St. Louis installed a brand new blitz for the Colts, and both times it was used, it worked perfectly for the Cardinals. The red-dogging Cardinals desperately forced and recovered 4 fumbles, and those 4 fumbles made the difference in an otherwise even contest. O.J. Simpson and the Bills came to Baltimore for the final game of the regular season, and it was to be a true showcase of superstars. For his part, the man they called the Juice wrapped up yet another NFL rushing title. As spectacular as O.J. was, this was to be a day of Colt football. Burt Jones threw 3 more touchdowns, including the 11th of the season for Roger Carr, who also became the first Colt receiver since Raymond Berry to surpass 1,000 yards for a season. And Burt Jones, of course, became the first Colt quarterback since John Unitas to lead the league in passing yardage. For Coach Ted Marchibroda, it was an almost perfect afternoon, as even the defense was putting points on the board for the NFL's highest-scoring team. In all, the Colts scored a club record 58 points as they prepared for the playoffs and a Pittsburgh Steelers team which many considered the best ever.
Who's going to win? It's the immovable object and the irresistible force situation. Again, the best offense against the best defense. We have been, I guess, spoon-fed by a lot of coaches in the past few years that the team with the best defense is going to win. Do you feel that way?
I feel that, well, the way I've been brought up, and it's the old school, and that is if they can't score on you, you can't lose. And I think it's a philosophy that, since a lot of coaches are in their late 30s, early 40s, it's a philosophy that a lot of coaches use. My theory is that if we can keep the offense going, if we can get them moved a little bit, then it'll open up a lot of opportunities for us in the long pass. What we've been doing all year is running the ball well and then going over the top for the big play, and this is the way we've scored. So what we've really got to do is try to establish that. And I really can't answer the question about the irresistible force and the immovable object, because that's what the game is all about.
Man for man, person for person, they're probably the best team in football. But I think that there are so many other variables in the game in the National Football League that help make you or break you. And I think that, we can match up with them. I think that we're a very well-coached ball club here in Baltimore. And because of it, I think that, we can come out on top. And if we can just keep them from having the football and sustain some drives and keep them from scoring points and us score points, we'll win.
The philosophy of the Colts seemed simple enough, but their opponents this time were the defending 2-time Super Bowl champion Pittsburgh Steelers. And although the Colts had the better record overall, the Steelers had won 9 consecutive games and were being described as awesome, phenomenal, and even frightening. Roger Carr became the first player all year to score a first-period touchdown against Pittsburgh. But when Burt Jones looked for more, the game's best defense closed down the game's best offense. Steeler quarterback Terry Bradshaw took over the role of Burt Jones and bombed away at the Colt deep defenses. Bradshaw celebrated his return from an injury with one of the best days of his career as he led the Steelers to a resounding 40-14 victory. For the Baltimore faithful, the Steelers' crushing triumph meant a depressing conclusion for a season of tremendous accomplishment. But the pride of Colt football is still building. Ted Marchibroda directs a superb cast of players, from 5'5" Howard Stevens through a gung-ho assemblage of specialists like bomb squad belters Tim Baylor, Dan Dickel, Sanders Shiver, and number 56, Ed Simonini. So effective was David Lee's punting game that the Colts led the entire NFL in punting efficiency. And this was also a tribute to quality depth players like Forrest Blue, Randy Hall, Jimmy Kennedy, and Mike Kirkland. The defense was young and improving, but injuries in key positions kept the coaching staff hopping. One of the more critical of the Colts' injuries was to starting right cornerback Nelson Muncy, number 31. Fortunately for the Colts, fourth-year cornerback Ray Oldham, number 25, was ready to step in as a starter. And as always, Oldham's enthusiasm was infectious. At the other corner was the steady 8-year veteran Lloyd Mumford, number 42. At free safety was number 20, Jackie Wallace, who led the team in interceptions with 5, and was also credited with 74 unassisted tackles. At strong safety was Bruce Laird, number 40, a man whose ability to stick people helped create turnovers for the ball hawks of the Colt defense. One such ball hawk was number 59, the 9-year veteran middle linebacker Jim Chayunsky. At outside linebacker, Tom McLeod missed the entire season due to injury and was replaced by number 58, second-year man Darrell Luce. Number 53, Stan White, led the Colts in solo tackles with 106 and also caused 4 fumbles and recovered 3. Third down and long yardage. That's the situation that opposing quarterbacks dread, while the Baltimore sack pack savors every opportunity to pillage an enemy pass pocket. 57 times the quarterback was felled as the Colts led the conference in this department for the second straight season. New additions to the pack were number 1 draft choice Ken Novak and number 73, second-year defensive end Ron Fernandez. At defensive tackle, Joe Ehrman, number 76, continued to spend much of his time in the opposition's backfield. And if right tackle Joe Ehrman couldn't get through, chances were good that left tackle Mike Barnes would. From the left end position, number 72, Fred Cook, did his share of damage. And while Cook charged in from one side, from the other side came number 78, right end John Dutton, 6 feet 7 inches and 266 pounds of All-Pro. All of these men are young, with their best years still ahead, though it's hard to imagine years better than those enjoyed by John Dutton, 13 sacks. Mike Barnes, 7 sacks. Joe Ehrman, 11 sacks. Fred Cook, 11 sacks. With men like these, Vice President and General Manager Dick Szymanski and head coach Ted Marchibroda have the solid foundations upon which to build Colt championships of the future. The heart and soul of the 76 Colts was an offense which led the entire NFL in both yardage and scoring. One of the league's best lines had number 64 tackle David Taylor, along with a superior pair of pass-blocking guards in number 66 Elmer Collette and number 61 Robert Pratt. At right tackle was the imposing figure of All-Pro George Coombs, while the center position was capably handled by Ken Mendenhall, number 57. Along with Ken Huff, Bob Van Dyne, and Forrest Blue, these were the unsung heroes who helped Lydell Mitchell set a new Colt record with 1,200 yards rushing. But even when the holes closed, Lydell Mitchell battled on until he was finally recognized as one of the very best running backs in pro football. There were other less publicized heroes like running backs Don McCauley, Ron Lee, and number 48, Roosevelt Leaks. But there was one hero whose fame spread further as the weeks flew by. Player of the Year Burt Jones threw for 24 touchdowns and was the league's only 3,000-yard passer. As a runner and receiver, Don McCauley accounted for 11 touchdowns, while tight end Raymond Chester caught 24 passes for an average of 20 yards per catch. Among the wide receivers were young hopefuls like Freddie Scott, Ricky Thompson, the injured Marshall Johnson, and number 35 Glenn Dowdy, who caught 40 passes and scored 5 touchdowns. But the combination that had the entire football world talking was the one that read, Jones to Carr, touchdown. For in one fabulous season, Roger Carr had lifted himself from relative obscurity to the status of an All-Pro. These, then, were the Baltimore Colts of 1976. The men who proved that a new tradition is just beginning in Baltimore, and that the pride of Colt football will be an NFL force to be reckoned with for years to come.